We're a couple weeks removed from the 2023 NFL Draft, and on this week's episode, we break down teams in the AFC and hand out draft grades on the Fired Up NFL Draft Podcast.
You're listening to the Fired Up Podcast Network. Let's get fired up.
And I'm Brian Lamb from NFL Draft Lounge, joined as always by Sean Balzer. What's up, Sean?
What's up, Brian? Let's
Ready?
Talk some draft grades.
Let's do it. So we're going to go through teams in the 16 teams, alphabetical order. I've already done draft grades on NFL Draft Lounge, so that's what we're going off of. So it should be a fun show. Starting up, we're going to Baltimore with the Ravens. I gave them a C grade. Just kind of overlooked the guys that they got. I'm not going to go through all these picks, but they got Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College in the first round. Trenton Simpson, Caillou Blue Kelly, cornerback out of Stanford in the 5th round. And then a player that I really like, Andrew Voorhees, interior offensive lineman out of USC in the 7th round. He's the one that got hurt at the combine, tore his ACL, so he's going to miss the season. But, you know, I gave them a draft grade of C. For me, just looking at Voorhees is just tremendous value. Obviously, this season is going to be a redshirt year, but the upside is just tremendous and should be a day one starter once he's healthy. Going through and looking at the top of the class, Zay Flowers, I didn't think that he was going to make it into the first round. Obviously, he does here. Gives Lamar Jackson a weapon or two. Just to, I think kind of boosts up that offense a little bit.
Yeah, I'll say for this grade and for most of your grades, I will say I actually agree pretty closely. I went through your grades before this podcast to try to look for some that we heavily disagree on, and there are a couple, but for the most part, we're right in lockstep. So I'm with you here on the Ravens. I like to note significant trades that were made, including draft picks. So I do think you factor in here that they did get Roquan Smith. On top of that, I mean, I like Zay Flowers. I was kind of excited to see him go somewhere where he could be the main pass catching option or maybe the number 2. And that's not the case here. So I found the fit to be a little weird, but hey, they're certainly making Lamar happy with all of these weapons. So that'll be fun to watch, really, with the new Ravens offense, what that's going to look like this year. But overall, agree with you. Like the value with Voorhees, the Trenton Simpson there. I mean, the Ravens love them some linebackers. Nothing against Simpson, especially at the 86th pick, but it seems a little excessive with what they've got at linebacker with Roquan and Patrick Queen, who I believe today there was talk of them wanting to extend him. There's been trade rumors about him. We'll see, but I'm pretty much here with you. Maybe slightly higher than a C, but I'm right there with you.
Yeah, just for me, going back to Zay Flowers quickly, you go back and look at their roster. You have Tylan Wallace and Andy Isabella, both slot receivers, behind him in depth. I just thought it was a crowded room. I didn't necessarily understand that pick, but
yeah, I mean, with Odell and Bateman, I'm a big Bateman fan. We'll see if he's able to come off the foot injury, and then obviously not only do you have Mark Andrews, but sophomore Isaiah Likely at tight end as a pass catcher as well. It's a great pass catching core, especially when you factor in these tight ends. So I would not call it a need, but it definitely makes this a much more fearsome passing offense.
Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills. I gave them a draft grade of B-. Going to look at some of these players that they've got. In the first round, they grabbed Dalton Kincaid, the tight end out of Utah. Second round, they went to Osiris Torrance, interior offensive lineman from Florida. Further down the board, you have Dorian Williams, linebacker, Tulane. Justin Shorter, wide receiver from Florida. Nick Broker, offensive tackle from Ole Miss, and Alex Austin, cornerback out of Oregon State. The big one to me is just Dalton Kincaid. You have Dawson Knox on the roster. Just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to grab another tight end. But then again, you look at that draft and how the board played out. Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison were both off the board at that point. I probably would have addressed another need and come back to tight end or some other position. So that one just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But looking at the players that they grabbed, I think you make an argument that they got a ton of value out of a lot of players that they drafted.
Yeah, we've discussed the Dalton Kincaid pick previously. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of Dalton Kincaid. I think that they view him more as a big slot receiver, somebody that they can flex off the line, still keep Dawson Knox in the game, and then they've got their options there. Obviously, they've got Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. I think they've got high hopes for what will now be sophomore Khalil Shakir as a potential slot receiver, but they've got clearly what should be a better option here in Dalton Kincaid. And then, down the line, if, Kincaid's able to develop and play more in line, and Shakir is able to develop and be the slot wide receiver that they're hoping, then you've got all those guys on the field. And it's, I like that move for them. Big Dalton Kincaid fan, obviously the best pass catching tight end in my view. Osiris Torrance is definitely somebody, considered to be a potential first rounder to be able to, he's a plug and play guard for them to be able to get him, late second. I think that's great. We've talked about Dorian Williams before. I think that's good value there in the third. Justin Shorter, is more of like a flyer to me in the fifth round, wide receiver with kind of disappointing production for his size. But nothing wrong with taking a shot there.
You have the 25th pick. The big thing that stands out for me is that they're just a starter. I don't see a day roster. I don't think Doug's going to start. I don't know if Osiris Torrance is going to start. I don't know if Justin Shorter is going to start. I don't know if Dorian Williams is going to start. So I love the value. I just have questions about how that roster is going to play out.
Sounds like I'm slightly higher than you here. I was thinking, BB minus. Maybe you're a little bit lower there. I think the Kincaid, and again, we talked about this, but I think the Kincaid thing comes down to everybody thought Dallas was going to take him, whether they're right or wrong. They jumped up for him to take him in front of Dallas. And that's after those four wide receivers went 1, 2, 3, 4 off the board. So I think that definitely messed with some plans, especially late in the draft when, pick 19, all four wide receivers were sitting there.
Yeah. Moving on to the Bengals. I gave them a draft grade of B. The guys that they've grabbed, first round Murphy, that out of Clemson, Turner, cornerback out of Michigan, Jordan Battle, safety, wide receiver out of Purdue, Chase running back out of Illinois in the 5th round, Andre Yoshevich, wide receiver out of Princeton in the 6th round. You go through and look at it, and you have Jonah Williams, who's requested a trade. They haven't addressed, that second offensive tackle position. And instead, they go defense with the first 3 picks. Obviously, kind of attacking the Chiefs in that division and going for the Super Bowl. Again, I guess similar to the Bills, love the players that they got. Really love Chase Brown in the 5th round. I just have questions about, I guess their strategy here in the 2023 NFL draft.
Yeah, they are a team that historically will sit back and let the board come to them. And I think that that's really what they did here. And, I would imagine that they did not go into this draft planning to take 3 defensive players with their first 3 picks. I know most fans thought offensive tackle, pending a potential Jonah Williams trade, which I think this signals that they don't want to trade him. We'll see if they're able to smooth things out there and hang on to him. I know a lot of fans are thinking maybe running back a little higher. maybe tight end. Obviously, sitting here at 28, they had their pick of the next tight ends after Dalton Kincaid. So I was a little surprised to see them pass there. But Miles Murphy, I don't think they or most people expected him to be available here. I mean, I definitely didn't. I thought higher of him than the Will McDonald's and the Lucas Van Nesses. So I don't fault him at all for sitting and taking Miles Murphy. I would have liked to have seen them address the offense a little bit. It took until the fourth pick to take a wide receiver, and while I think wide receiver depth needed to be addressed, you're still going into the season with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. So just I guess I'm here with you around a B. I think they got great value. I like the first 3 picks. I like Chase Brown. I like I don't like taking a punter in the 6th round, but
better than the 3rd round.
It is, and I think we're going to get to that.
Going back to the wide receiver position, Leeds and Tyler Boyd are both last year's contract, so you had address that need at some point. I had them doing it 24. They kind of do it here with the late round, day 3 picks with Charlie Jones and Andre Yusevich.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. My guess is that they'll address that position really in the 2024 NFL draft. Moving on, we have the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, as a repercussion of that Deshaun trade, they're not picking until the 3rd round. So they have 2 picks in the 3rd, and the rest of their picks were all day 3. They grabbed Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee in the 3rd. Waka Ika, defensive tackle, DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle. Grabbed DTR in the round. And I gave them a grade of C. It's tough to roster when I just thought that there was more value on that board have gone after. So the picks, it's just there's some value there for me.
Yeah, I mean, the Deshaun Watson trade's the big story here. They don't pick until pick 74. I do like Cedric Tillman. I think that's pretty decent value there at 74. DeJuan Jones, I mean, if you told me pre-draft he was going to go in the 4th round at 111, that would have shocked me. Post-draft, we heard some negative things about his pre-draft interview process, and I don't know if there was an injury concern as well. I know you're a big Dorian Thompson-Robinson fan. I think it's always great to pick up a potential developmental quarterback there. I'm with you. This is kind of right down the fairway C-ish. I think it all hinges on how Deshaun Watson performs over the next few years.
Yeah, I love that TR pickup. Mid day 3 pick costing you a ton, and you get somebody that's at least on Watson pocket and make plays, extend play, developmental prospect. Probably the end of either Josh Dobbs or Kellen Mond. But I love that kind of upside for that pick. For Broncos, I think they got my worst grade. I gave them a D+. 2nd round, they got Marvin Mims Jr., wide receiver out of Oklahoma, Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas, Riley Moss, cornerback out of Iowa, J.L. Skinner, safety out of Boise State, and Alex Forsyth, interior offensive lineman out of Oregon. I just don't see a ton of upside in any of these picks that they've grabbed. For a team that performed poorly last year, I just don't see them on paper how they got better.
Yeah, this is the first one where I feel strongly against your grade, and that's not in the positive direction. I think this is an absolute F. It's a 0. It's an I. It's terrible. They don't pick until 63, and it's because of the Russell Wilson trade. I have to penalize them for that. Obviously, that currently looks like a disaster. We'll see if Sean Payton can turn that around. But their first pick, 63 picks in, is a wide receiver. Like, I mean, I'm sure they're disappointed in the performances of Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy struggled with injuries. He, shown some flashes. Tim Patrick obviously tore his ACL. He'll be back this season. I think they've got high hopes for him. KJ Hamler struggled with injuries. Maybe they've given up on him. I don't know, but without at least a plan to trade one of these guys, we've heard offseason rumors of potential trades with Sutton and Jeudy. If they're going into the season with these guys and your first pick was Marvin Mims, I don't get it. I don't understand at all. I don't get it. Terrible use of resources there. And then in the third round, you go Drew Sanders, who this is actually their best pick. I want to commend them for this. I think Drew Sanders is kind of right there with Jack Campbell as best off-ball linebackers in the draft, which highlights my hatred for the Lions' decision-making. But to be able to get him here at 67 was good. But I mean, you're right. Like, this team didn't get better. This team went into the draft. They ended up selecting 5 players, and they just, I don't see how they got better. Marvin Mims has got to turn into quite the producer behind 3 or 4 wide receivers that I don't see him jumping in the short term. I hate this draft.
Well, and you have coming in to become a head coach, you would think that they would have kind of gone at that he covets. Maybe not a tight end quarterback, but at least that you can put out there and kind of spruce up your offense and extend the field and push the field. And that's not Marvin Mims. So it's just it's just questionable moves across the board. That's all.
They also traded up for Marvin Mims, and they traded a pick. I think it was a pick swap, so not a big deal, but they traded for Adam Troutman, part of their draft resources here. I hate it all.
Yeah. Moving on, we have the Houston Texans. I gave them a B+ on day 1 of the NFL draft in the first round. Picked second, and they grabbed C.J. Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State. Then up 3 for Will Anderson Jr., the edge out of Alabama. Came back on day 2 with Juice Scruggs, interior offensive lineman, and Tank Dell, one of the smallest wires I've ever seen. Day 3. They got some great value out of Henry 2020, Xavier Hudson, and Brandon Hill, the safety out of Pitt in the 7th round. Why I gave them a B+.
Yeah, I think B-ish is fair. I can't go B+ just because I hate the trade, and I'm not going to go too deep into that again. I hate burning next year's first round pick to move up to go for Will Anderson. But I have to give Houston credit. They took the quarterback they should take. They got a very talented defensive end. I like Tank Dell a lot. As you've said many times, he's quite tiny. So we'll see how he and all of these little wide receivers perform this year or going forward. I do like the value of To'o out of Alabama, Jared Patterson, Notre Dame. Good picks. I mean, it's all about the top 2, and again, Houston, I hope you're not sitting there pick 2, 3, or 4 and watching your pick being used on Marvin Harrison Jr. next year. But other than that, you got some great talent. You got better as a team, no doubt about it.
Best value here on the board is Henry 2020. Smart interior line. Believe he was calling the plays for the Crimson Tide.
That's correct.
D'Amico Ryans, an Alabama linebacker himself, smart, and gets in the right position, makes plays because he's there all the time. I really think that's bottom, and grab a linebacker in the 5th round and somebody that's going to play that strong. I love that move. Moving on to the Colts, I'm a draft grade of an A. Just a ton of picks. Anthony Richardson at 4, Julius Brents, cornerback out of Kansas State in the 2nd round, Josh Downs, wide receiver, Blake Freeland, offensive tackle, Adi Tamawa, edge out of Northwestern in the 4th round, Darius Rush, Jalen Jones, cornerback, Quit, tight end, Evan Hull, running back. I mean, just a slew of players, and it just felt like every single time they were on the clock, it was value after value after value, especially for Ballard, who I think is probably the hottest GM on the seat, right? And has to really kind of hit a home run this year, I think, to save his job. And looking at this draft on paper, I think that's safe to say that he did that.
Yeah, since you set me up with the home run, I'll go straight to the Chris Ballard quote, which I think was the best or second best quote of the draft regarding the top 3 quarterbacks and who was their favorite. He said, "quote Why not take the one who could be a grand slam?" I thought that was, other than Jerry Jones' response to where did we have Mozzie on the board of who gives a shit. That was the that was the 2 quotes of the draft, I guess, right there. And I agree 100%. I love the video of Ballard sitting there, and the Texans trade up to 3. I don't know if you saw this, but the Cardinals traded the pick, and there's like that 2 to 3 seconds where Ballard's like, "Oh no," like just you see he's like so worried and devastated. And then they say that the Texans are now on the clock, and he's like, "We got our guy," and he's pumped up, and I love it. So like, got to give him credit for not only getting their guy, but sitting there when a lot of people thought, hey, maybe they should jump up a spot. Supposedly they were still into Will Levis, and they could have taken him there at 4, and maybe that's why they actually stayed there. But to not give up the capital, to be able to sit at 4, still get their guy, that's a home run. So I mean, for me to disagree with you here seems a little ridiculous, but this is an absolute A+ for me. I love their draft. 12 players. All athletes, like the Colts do it. They're big, relative athletic score, however you want to measure it. These are all great athletes, including their very last pick, Jake Witt. You and I talked about him a few months ago, or I think right around the combine, because he crushed the combine. It's like, wait a second, who is this guy? And there he goes in the 7th round. I don't know who else to point out. Josh Downs, I love that value there at 79. Another small guy. Again, we'll see how these small guys do, but I love him there at 79. And then I didn't hear anything negative on him. And excuse me as I butcher this name, but Aditama Adibare, for him to go at 110 was kind of a shocker to me. I mean, he got some 1st round buzz. I never really expected that to happen, but for him to end up in the 4th round at 110 was kind of a shocker to me, and I'm sure they're thrilled with that value. Big Julius Brents fan as well, another corner in the top 50 or so. I mean, there were so many of those guys up there. So again, this is my favorite AFC draft. A+ for me.
Yeah, I had Adibare, I think, in the 2nd round. So like you said, the fact that he did fall down that board was surprising, but hats off to the Colts for moving up there to get him. Moving on to the Jaguars, I gave him a C+. Again, ton of players. 1st round, Anton Harrison, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Brenton Strange, tight end out of Penn State. Tank Bigsby, Ventrell Miller, Antonio Johnson, Parker Washington. But I gave him a C+ because I just don't see where they got better. I think every time that they went up on the clock, there were better players available than the players that they chose. So, for a team that was kind of close but didn't get there last year in the playoffs, I thought that they would kind of try to go after a player that would make their offense better and more prolific and more explosive, and some help for Trevor Lawrence, and instead, so just a move that I'm kind of scratching my head on. I don't really understand it. You have Cam Robinson there, you have Walker Little there. What is Robinson doing? So
yeah, I'm with you here. I didn't really feel like they got better, and we heard that Cam Robinson was going to get suspended a few hours or early morning of the draft. So that was news to us, and I think that's the reason for the Anton Harrison pick. I mean, I think Anton Harrison at pick 27 is a good selection. I think that makes sense. It's always best to solidify the O line if you have a question mark. But did they get any better? I mean, you had Cam Robinson does come back eventually, and then what? Do you flip him to the other side? I guess potentially. I hate the Tank Bigsby pick in the 3rd round. It's no surprise. What's his name? Balky? Is that who we're talking about here? He's taken a running back in something like 15 straight drafts. I think, don't quote me on that, but something ridiculous in the 15 that he's been a part of. He's taken a running back at some point. I don't have any issue with them pairing somebody with Travis Etienne. In the 3rd round, and I'm not anti-Bigsby or anything, but in the 3rd round, there were better players that made the team better on the board. They came out of this with 13 players. I like Parker Washington in the 6th round. That's probably my favorite pick of theirs. But ultimately, I agree with your grade, and I agree that they didn't really get better. They stabilized the line while Robinson suspended. But do we expect this team to take a step forward? It's going to be because Trevor Lawrence takes a step forward, and Calvin Ridley is added to the show here. So that is a disappointing one for me.
Yeah. Moving on to the Chiefs. Obviously won the Super Bowl. First round, they get Felix and Udike Uzoma at Kansas State. Second round, they come back to Rashee Rice, wide receiver out of SMU. Wanya Morris, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. Keandre Coburn, defensive lineman out of Texas in the 6th round. So I gave them for a team that doesn't have a lot of holes. It's tough to get better, especially when you're picking at the end of the round. But I just thought there were some better moves that could be made. Thought maybe get some more draft capital, and they did. I think they came in with way more picks than what they had. I just thought that they could have done maybe a better job of navigating that draft board.
Yeah, I'm slightly higher on the draft here than you are. Chiefs always prioritize measurables, and that really stands out here, especially with Rashee Rice. I like the pick of Enudike Uzoma, pairing him with Karlaftis. Not only does that give them a potentially fearsome pass rush, but protects them from if Frank Clark leaves, which I believe he's currently a free agent. So Rashee Rice is an interesting pick. I didn't see him going that high pre-draft. Post-draft, there's a lot of talk about, size, production, athleticism. I mean, if you were to pick which wide receiver was the best size, production, athleticism, all in one, you could say Rashee Rice. Bigger guy that gives them a bigger option there, potentially on the outside that they don't really have currently. So I mean, I think it's a decent draft. Like it a little better than yours. I think Wanya Morris is a great pick, really, at 92.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're going to address the wide receiver position, and you're doing so from the 55th overall pick. You don't have a lot of options on that board, right? I think like Hyatt was still available, but I can understand why you'd pass on him. He's got speed, but what else does he have? But you're the Chiefs. You have draft capital. You could have moved up to get your guy, and they didn't. They stayed there, and I think it's a not a great pick for me there. With that
should probably mention that Kadarius Toney should be considered part of this draft, and he provided a little bit of spark here and there. We'll see if he's able to be more of a consistent producer next year. I think that they're hoping for and somewhat counting on that. But if he's unable to, then they'll turn more to Rashee Rice and last year's second round pick Sky Moore.
Yeah. Moving to the Chargers. First round, went with Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU. Came back on day 2 for Tuli Tuipulotu, defensive lineman out of Southern California. Dayon Henley, linebacker out of Washington State. Darius Davis, wide receiver out of TCU. And then in the 7th round, they go after Max Duggan, quarterback out of TCU. 3 players from TCU there. And some depth there with Jordan McFadden, interior offensive lineman out of Clemson in the 5th round, and Scott Matlock, defensive lineman out of Boise State in the 6th round. So I gave them a B. Loved Quentin Johnston here. He was my top wide receiver coming into the draft. Think he's a perfect fit there for Justin Herbert. Love what they did there. Think that he lines up well opposite of Mike Williams. I love what they did. Which is why I gave him a B. I can criticize it and I can pick it and better things to do, but for a team that was picking 21st in the draft, honestly, you got to get better on both sides of the ball, and I felt like there was a good balance there of addressing both sides and finding players that fit what they wanted to do.
So Tom Telesco is another one of these GMs that likes to just sit and pick. I don't think we see very many trades out of him up or down in the draft. Quentin Johnston, I want to commend the Chargers for taking a wide receiver. I think whether it was wide receiver or tight end that they needed help, that offense was really unable to push the ball down the field. And if they think that Quentin Johnston can help them do that better, then hats off to them. I would have preferred personally for them to go with Jordan Addison here. I thought he was a better fit, better to help them push that downfield passing game. And you've got 2 older wide receivers that, time's ticking here. So I'm glad they didn't just count on them and move forward there. But other than that, I agree with most of what you said there. I like the 7th round stab at Max Duggan, especially being able to throw to his guy from college, and Tuipulotu in the 2nd round is I like that pick as well.
Yeah, you can pronounce that one better than I can. Way to show off. Las Vegas Raiders are up next. With the 7th overall pick, they grabbed Tyree Wilson, edge out of Texas Tech. I thought he's actually kind of a better player than Will Anderson Jr. 2nd round, they came back for Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. Byron Young, defensive lineman out of Alabama. Trey Tucker, wide receiver, Cincinnati. Jacorian Bennett, cornerback out of Maryland. Aiden O'Connell, quarterback out of Purdue. I think there's a lot of upside there. He was at the Shrine game and really put on a performance there. And I think that some people kind of expected maybe he would come off the board a little earlier than he did. I love Tyree Wilson there. Kind of take some pressure off of Max Crosby. Kind of let him do different things there. A backup for Jimmy Garoppolo, and some weapons for Garoppolo and Michael Mayer and Trey Tucker. So really love what they did overall. And I think they kind of just knocked out, rounds 1 through 4?
Probably slightly lower, but I mostly agree with you. I mean, I like the Tyree Wilson pick. How can you not? I think pairing him with Max Crosby is great. Michael Mayer in the second round, I still don't understand that one. As I understand like how he got to 35. As much as I like Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer's right there with him. I thought Kincaid was a better pass catcher, but he's still right there with him. So for him to go roughly 10 picks later really surprised me. But yeah, I mean, we talk about teams that didn't get better. The Raiders absolutely got better here. They improved their pass rush. They improved, pass catching option there with Mayer. I thought I was a little surprised to see O'Connell go off that high personally. That was kind of part of a quarterback run. I don't fault him for doing it in the 4th round though. But yeah, overall, maybe a B for me.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly got better. They'll still win 4 games, but they got better. Miami Dolphins are up next. They only had 4 picks. 2nd round, Cam Smith, cornerback out of South Carolina. 3rd round, Devon Achane, running back out of Texas A&M. Elijah Higgins, wide receiver out of Stanford. And Ryan Hayes, offensive tackle out of Michigan. I gave them a C+. Tough to get back picks, especially when you don't have a 1st rounder. Really liked Cam Smith and Devon Achane, but I think that they have other holes, and I think that they have other needs. Is running back, a third, a running back that's going to be 3rd on your depth chart. Is that getting better?
A satellite running back too.
Yeah. I mean, a cornerback that's not starting, is that getting better? I mean, they fell short last year. Obviously you hope that Tua Tagovailoa can remain healthy. I didn't mispronounce that, by the way. You give them some weapons and you hope that team can get better, but I just felt like they could have done a better job overall.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins were like sneaky good last year and people didn't realize it because of Tua's injuries. Like I said before, I mean, they barely lost to the Bills in the playoffs with 3rd string quarterback Skylar Thompson. That could have gone very differently. I like Cam Smith in 2nd, but I'm with you on Devon Achane. I don't understand it. I mean, I do understand it. Mike McDaniel wants to have the fastest human beings on the planet at every skill position, and that's how he's going to win. I like Mike McDaniel, but I don't know. I don't think that was anywhere near one of your biggest needs. I did expect them to address running back at some point. So, I mean, there it is, but it was, 1 of 4 picks. Not a fan of that at all. Bradley Chubb is part of this. They traded one of their ones for him and then lost the other one in the Tom Brady stuff. I think they also traded for Jalen Ramsey with one of these picks. So I give him a little bit more credit here, maybe a solid C, but I'm with you when you come out of this with 4 picks and one of them's a running back. That's he's a speed guy, but I'd call him a satellite back. I don't love it. I do like Cam Smith though.
Yeah. Moving on to the Patriots, gave them a B. Whole list of players that they've grabbed. In round 1, they moved back for Christian Gonzalez. On day 2, you grabbed Keon White, Marte Mapu. And then on day 3, Andrews, interior offensive lineman out of Troy. They grabbed Chad Ryland, a kicker out of Maryland. Keyshawn Butte, wide receiver out of LSU. Demario Douglas, wide receiver out of Liberty. And the only HBCU player in Isaiah Bolden, cornerback out of Jacksonville, in the 7th round. It's always tough to kind of try to predict what New England does because they go and grab guys that you've never heard of and you never watched. And maybe guys that aren't necessarily ranked high on the media's board, but it is on their board. So, I think that you can look at it and see where they wanted to go and where they wanted to get better. And overall, I mean, I think that that's what they accomplished here.
Once I realized they took a kicker and a punter in a draft, I wanted to crush this draft so bad. Unfortunately, I can't because I like so much of the other picks. I think Christian Gonzalez at 17 was a steal. I think Keon White at 46 was a steal. Keishon Butte, I love taking a shot at him there in the 6th round. I mean, that's a guy, we're going to talk about 2024 prospects soon. If we're sitting here talking about, a year ago, talking about the 2023 prospects as potential first rounders, his name would have came up. Obviously, he was a little disappointing from a production standpoint and testing and everything else, and reportedly interviews as well. So I understand why he fell, but I like the taking the shot there. I'd be lying if I said I didn't like Bryce Behringer, but to use a draft pick on a punter and a kicker, I hate it. I absolutely hate that. But again, as much as I'd like to tear this apart, I do like the rest of their haul here, especially Gonzalez and White.
I think there's a fight going on in the hallway of my apartment complex. Yeah, it's fun. Moving on, we have the Jets. I gave them a C-.
Is that fight over the nudist?
It might be, yeah. We were talking about this before we went on air. I have a nudist neighbor. It was raining out yesterday, and she was just standing outside. A little odd. I guess.
New York Jets.
15th pick, they go with Will McDonald, edge out of Iowa State. Thank you for that. Joe Tippmann, interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin. Carter Warren, offensive tackle out of Pitt. Israel
Abanikanda.
Thank you. Out of Pitt. Zaire Barnes, linebacker out of Western Michigan. I'm still laughing about the neighbor. You bring in an older quarterback, you got to protect them. Obviously, they did that with their 2nd round, their 4th round pick in Tippmann and Warren, both offensive linemen. They get a running back. But, I mean, where else did you get better? Obviously, you bring in some old Packer wide receivers. I mean, for one, I think it's just going to fail. I don't think that they're going to be very good next year. But
hot take.
Well, I don't know if it is. But I just don't see where as a team they got better, and as a franchise they got better. I just don't see a lot of these guys maybe lasting very long on their roster.
Yeah, I didn't write this down as one of my big disagreements, but I guess I factor in the Aaron Rodgers trade, and at the end of the day, they got a star quarterback that can potentially win them a Super Bowl. So I'd go a lot higher here. I've already discussed the Will McDonald pick. To me, I was shocked to see him go that high. He definitely has pass rush skills. He definitely has the production. I get that. We'll see if they can help develop him in the run game, or if they're going to have to take him off the field for that. Tippmann and Carter Warren, it's going to help protect Rodgers, protect the depth. Abanikanda, Izzy and Abanikanda. I like the player. I didn't see the need. We're talking 5th round here, so I don't want to crush it too much. But you got Breece Hall coming back off the ACL. Obviously, we'll see where he's at. Everybody expects him to be ready to go week 1. But the rest of that running back room produced when called upon. So I'm a little surprised to see them, take a running back there. Big Zach Kuntz fan, another high relative athletic score guy. I think he was right around a 10. So like that there. But when you weight the fact that they acquired Aaron Rodgers here, I'd be quite a bit higher.
Yeah, Kuntz is currently listed as the 4th tight end on the roster on our lads.
Well, he went 220, so.
Moving on to the Steelers, I gave them a C plus. In that first round, they moved up for Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Had that first pick in the second round that I know that they were looking to trade out of. Instead, they kept that pick and went Joey Porter Jr. back out of Penn State. Keanu Benton, defensive lineman out of Wisconsin. Darnell Washington, tight end out of Georgia. Those were just their first four picks. Low there. I gave it a C plus. Looking at it, maybe it moves up into the B range, but I maybe would have taken whatever was being offered for that 32nd overall pick and moved down and grabbed some capital, especially for a team that was great last year.
Yeah, this is definitely our biggest disagreement, and I like to see you start swinging my way as you start going through this. This is definitely an A for me. This is my second favorite AFC draft after the Colts. Just they're able to move up and get their guy in Broderick Jones, who reportedly the Jets were interested in, so they're able to jump them and get their day one, I think, starter at left tackle, and then still get Joey Porter, who certainly I'm sure that was a fan favorite pick. So to not reach for him at 17 and still get their left tackle and get the corner that they needed. Like, a lot of people have been talking about whether or not they actually needed help at corner. They 100% do. They just, they're able to get the one that the fans really wanted. Not only that, but he'll be able to learn from Patrick Peterson. And I think that has some value. And I think that the Steelers value that kind of thing. Keanu Benton, I think he could be a 3 or a 5 tech for them. Another guy that was a potential first round pick. Darnell Washington, another guy that was a potential first round pick. Maybe that was a little overhyped. And then obviously we found out that there were some injury concerns. But bringing in the big left tackle, bringing in Darnell Washington, who I believe on his own Instagram profile refers to himself as a 6th offensive tackle. I think that, the Steelers are going to be able to do more of the smash mouth running style that their fans are accustomed to, as they've been unable to do for several years because they've neglected that offensive line, but should be pretty solid, if not good at this point. And, a healthy Darnell Washington will help with that. This is an easy A for me.
And finally, in the AFC, we have the Tennessee Titans. With that 11th overall pick, they went Peter Skoronski, offensive lineman out of Northwestern. I know some had him as a tackle. I think he's going to end up playing guard. Second round, obviously, it took Will Levis, cornerback out of Kentucky. Third round, Tyjae Spears, running back out of Tulane. Fifth round, Josh Wiley, tight end out of Cincinnati. Sixth round, Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle out of Maryland. And in the 7th round, Colton Dowell, wide receiver out of Tennessee Martin. I gave them a C. I love going after that offensive line. Obviously, you're going to have a young quarterback starting there. I think this kind of signifies the end of Ryan Tannehill. Love the patience that they showed for Will Levis. Obviously, they kind of did the same thing with Malik Willis and kind of let the board fall where it did, and then move up for the quarterback that they want. Really like Josh Wiley, the tight end out of Cincinnati. Maybe a little bit of a stiff runner, but liked his production and what he can offer in the passing game. But for me, that one move that I just have to crush is Tyjae Spears, running back out of Tulane. Loved what he did at the Senior Bowl. I was there, watched it live. Really making people miss, constantly making plays. I really thought that he elevated his draft stock. But then you had the report come out about his knee, that reportedly there's no ACL in one of his knees, that he has arthritis. And they're not sure if he's going to make it to his second contract. So to use a 3rd round pick on a guy that's probably not a long-term answer at that position is a head scratcher, to put it nicely.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because he looked absolutely electric at the Senior Bowl. Absolutely, we thought raised his draft stock. He was a really exciting player, and then the knee stuff comes out, and as we say, we'll see, but it doesn't seem like you can really expect him to make it to that second contract. That's a shame. I do give the Titans credit for, I mean, they pass on Levis, and and then maybe they just read it better than we did. They passed on him. Nobody takes him, and then they were reportedly desperately trying to trade up back into the back end of the first round. We talked about that before. I think the Eagles and Chiefs just liked too much what was still available to them to move back. But they got a guy who could be the guy. Neither one of us are real high on Levis, but personally, I think taking him there at 33 with your need at quarterback is a great decision. And then Skoronski, he was going to go in that range, whether it was them or somebody else. I agree. He's got sub 33-inch arms. I think he's almost certainly going to be a guard, but they needed help on the offensive line, especially with Taylor Lewan leaving. They signed Andre Dillard to supposedly help with that, but he wasn't necessarily great for the Eagles, even in limited duty. So we'll see. But the offensive line got a little better here. Titans raised their long-term ceiling with a guy like Levis. We'll see if he's able to actually pay it off for him.
Yeah, the Eagles may have taken Will Levis if he played for Georgia.
Eagles will take any quarterback falls far enough. The Eagles will take him.
That's going to do it for AFC draft grades. I'm Brian Lamb. I write for NFLDraftLounge.com. That's where you can see all my stuff. And I'm on Twitter at BrianLamb_ISN.
I am also on Twitter. You can follow me at Sean Balzer.
All right. Until next time, this has been the Fired Up NFL Draft Podcast. And don't forget to rate and review.